Great to be here. I know that you all are really, really excited that we're back after our little sojourn. But we have, Ways and Means has been working. I know most of you in here, in some way or shape or form, are going to have interest as it relates to Ways and Means. So let me just touch on that. And I'm not going to give you any information that Jason Smith hasn't already given you, except to say that we do have markup on a few bills on Wednesday. We do have some of our working groups that are going to be going on this week, and we didn't really know that we were going to be doing that up until just last week. So this is all relatively new. So the plan, of course, is that we will have some type of product, hopefully by December. And if it's anything, I don't know that it'll be anything like what we had in our House version, where we got 41 yeses and 3 nos. I don't know if we can get it that bipartisanly, but the plan is to have at least a working document by December, and then as we go into next year, have something ready to roll. I think we all saw what happened during the last TCJA. Nobody was really ready for tax reform, and so we had to wait a little while. And I think Jason has kind of led the charge, breaking the group up into 10 different groups. I know they're in here someplace. But we've had multiple hearings. I'm on 3 of them across kind of working groups. We've went into the businesses, many of the businesses, some of you represent, and just listening to the people back home. So the plan, of course, is to get this through December, have something ready to rock and roll first part of the year. That is the plan. Of course, we all know this town, so plans are just what they are, plans. So, but Jason's done a really good job communicating this, and I think to most of the lobby community, which is very important. So I would say that's kind of our main thing right now that we're focused on. I've got a number of pieces of legislation that I can talk about, most of which many of you don't really, maybe not have a lot of care in on some of the pieces, but they are very good bipartisan bills. For those of you that have worked with me now for the last almost 3 years, you know that I try to introduce every single bill I introduce. I have a Democrat co-sponsor. Because I believe if you're going to put that much work into making it a piece of legislation, why should it matter if we are not in power? And so I want to make sure no matter what bill I have, I do have bipartisan support. And I've been able to partner with a lot of the people that are in the Ohio delegation, and I think bipartisanly, if you look at our delegation, we do have a very good, tight working group. So I took 4.5 minutes, and so I'm going to turn it over to Michael.
I think John Lennon said, life's what happens when you're busy making plans. So to take off on Michael's words there. So for me, I think I want to talk about the grand old party for just a second. I had a lot of things in my life going on before I put on the suit. Before I got elected, I have 1 suit. I think I have like 15 now, which is sort of gross, but it is what it is. So how I came to the Republican Party, for me, I come from the land of William McKinley. He went to my school. My wife's not here right now, so I'll say this. I had my first kiss on the footsteps of the porch that William McKinley announced his presidency. So I was president of the William McKinley National Library for about 5 years. And the reason why I'm saying this is the East Coast of Ohio was navy blue when I was in high school. I was in high school in the late 80s, graduated from college in the early 90s, and the entire East Coast of Ohio was blue. So when I ran for the Ohio Senate, you have to have a reason why you're running. When I was running, I was in my late 30s, and I'm running for the Ohio Senate. And what I realized is that the people were unrepresented, and they felt like they were lost, and they were tired of the Democratic lies that were presented to them over the last 50 years. And then the 80s neocon version of the Republican Party about taking jobs away just left them without a home. So we saw a huge crossover, and it started happening with the Tea Party movement of 2010. And then I think that the lies that the Obama administration did, as far as if you like your doctor, you could keep him too. So you have a throwaway people, and I mean I'm talking places like Detroit, Akron, Canton, Toledo, Dayton, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, Youngstown, just this Archie Bunker, and these are people that shopped in my store forever, so I understood them well. And we had a crossover, and that happened in Mahoning County, which has been blue since day number one. I was the first Republican ever elected to the Ohio Senate from Youngstown. I had 43% of Democratic votes, because when I talk to somebody, I never say if you're a Republican. I said, how are you? What's going on in your world? So I watch a transformation of navy blue for like the 10 different counties that go along the east coast of Ohio to red, where we are now. And it's really paid out well for me, because if you're a statewide elected official, I made it clear to all of them that if you want to stay in office without my counties, you're not going to be in office, because Cleveland and Columbus, I mean, this guy's a miracle worker that he's actually in office in Columbus, because it's so blue. And the population is so thick there that it's the working man that actually was forgotten, that turned over to the grand old party, and they've accepted it full-heartedly, but we have to deliver. And like some of the things I had, there was a guy named Sean O'Brien who was in the Ohio Senate, and he was a Democrat, and him and I did a lot of legislation together. And we're still good friends. We go to get breakfast every Sunday. And we had just got breakfast a couple of weeks ago, and Sean became a big judge in Trumbull County, and we had two older ladies come up to us, and they started crying. And I said the story earlier. They said that they're worried the country's going to die, because the divide is so dramatic, and like on both sides, you know. So like, you know, we think they're wackos and they think we're Nazis, and that's not good, you know. So I think, you know, being friends with Mike over here and putting a different foot forward, you know, maybe more of a Main Street foot forward, where we could actually do a lot of hard work, and we could do legislation, and we could do policy for all Americans, and not just for our side. Of course, we're going to be pro-business, because business pays the taxes, and we are not going to be a communist country, but we're going to move forward with logical approach to policy, where we could look at both sides, and we make sure that the other side's represented, and that things that just because we like them, we might have to bend a little bit, and we might have to craft something really exceptional that everyone can embrace. And I think if we don't do that, the Republic can't survive. So like, I've made it clear that I will work with any Democrat, and that's just, I think that's just a little taste of who I am. So.
And just to touch on that too, by the way, there's more applause than I got for "Tell Me That You Love Me, Junie Moon." But the other thing I do want to touch on, because we touch on this bipartisan. I mean, we spoke here, oh gosh, what was it, about a year ago, maybe a little over a year ago, Joyce Beatty and I, and it's something that Joyce Beatty and I have kept up. So Joyce and I, if you're in Central Ohio, you know, we have done, I think we're now up to, counting this, when we spoke here, we're 39 different meetings where it's just she and I on stage. And, you know, again, you've got a Trump-endorsed Republican, and you've got the former head of the Congressional Black Caucus. And what we try to do is we try to stick to, you know, my hero, John Boehner's phrase of, you know, we can agree to disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable. And that's kind of what we've done in Columbus. And I think it's really, and we've traveled all over. We were at Cardinal Health just this past week, you know, and we had probably like 1,000 of their employees that had logged in. Many of them were in the audience, but it's something that we're trying to do, because I mean, it's what Mike and I see on the floor. I mean, I know he's on judiciary, which, you know, that can be a little partisan, but I not at all. But I can tell you from the Ways and Means perspective, and many of you have covered Ways and Means for years, you know this. I mean, we go in the back room and we sit there. And obviously, we lost one of our dear friends while we were on break. But you know, what you see is everybody's getting along really well, and we're all sitting there eating. You know, any hostility that was up on the dais was left on the dais, and you know, we're all sitting talking about our families, our kids. And so it's I think when people really, you know, my wife always says it'd be great if somebody would just film that. You know, when we're in the cloakroom together, we're talking, because really. We've got monumental divides, and election year just exacerbates the problem. But for the most part, I think we all pretty much do get along. There's some on my side that are kind of exotic that I'm not sure about, but I know the other side has that too. So.
I'm curious, you know, what you heard back in the districts over August from voters, what's resonating with them, what's top of mind with them, and Congressman Rulli, having worked for a grocery trade association a couple moons ago. I'm curious if any of Kamala's economic message when it comes to price fixing and things like that is connecting, or people are kind of seeing it as lies, like you mentioned. So.
You want to start? Okay. I mean, can everybody hear me okay? All right? Okay. So, my district is a little different than Mike's district, right? He has Youngstown, the Mahoning Valley. He has the Ohio Valley, which I spent a lot of time in back in the day in the 90s, all the way down to Marietta. So that is that side of the state that is trending, as he said, from blue to red. So when I first ran my first congressional race, when I was a campaign manager in 1994, that area was all solid blue. And we were the first time. Wayne L. Hayes had the seat. Doug Applegate had the seat, and then we came in 94 during the 104th Congress. So it started to change. Conversely, if you look at the city of Columbus, neighborhoods that traditionally had always been Republican. When I was doing campaigns in the 90s and even into the right before the turn of the century, it's weird to say that, but right, you could rely on some of these neighborhoods to consistently vote Republican. And now, if you look at Franklin County, which is the county that Columbus is the largest county in the state. Columbus is the largest city. I have 60% of the city. So there are 2 Republicans that are left in the city of Columbus. There's me and a state senator, Michelle Reynolds. And she only has like a couple of neighborhoods. So you've seen this whole paradigm shift. So when we talk about what's going on with the election, I mean, my home precinct is, if anybody knows Columbus, Ohio, it's German Village. Okay. So I lost my home precinct by 85% of the time. But nicely enough, none of my neighbors put my opponent's sides up, which is nice. They still like me. I think they like Megan better. But what I'll tell you is that the things that I hear there in downtown Columbus and the business community in the Columbus area is completely different in my district now that I share counties with Warren Davison and Jim Jordan. So if I go from inner city, 65% of my constituents are in Franklin County, and then it spreads out. So the issues that I hear from the farming community and the issues that I hear from the inner city, it's all the same. It's just different issues. So whether it's healthcare, but it's cost, it's inflation. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing I hear. And then really, I'm sure Mike can talk about out of his way, but I mean, I get a lot of people talking about the border. I mean, we don't represent, Mike Turner represents the city of Springfield. We've all seen this on the news lately. There are 20,000 Haitian refugees that have come in under protective status into a city of 60,000. So now you got 20,000 people that don't speak the language, that are overrunning the city of Springfield. I don't represent Springfield, but I represent all around Springfield. So that is a big issue. It's parochial to that region of the state. But again, it's cost, it's inflation. So I don't know. The draw to the vice president is just that. It's not Donald Trump, right? But then you just travel 30 minutes into the outside of my downtown area, then it's you hear all kinds of bad things about her, right? It's just it's a really weird dynamic in my district. So.
For me, it's sort of along the same lines. I guess I'll say this. So one of my magic is so we have these 3 stores, and I do all the jobs because when I was born, we already had the stores for 70 years. So my favorite thing to do, even when I was in the Senate, and even right now, last Saturday, I was on the register for about 4 hours. And I love getting on register. Like the one store I'm at all the time, we have like 14 checkout lanes. So I always go to the one that's right after the express lane because that's where the big orders are. And I'll get on there about like 10:30 and I'll stay until about 2:30, which is the highlight of the day. And I'll just ring out like 400 or 500 orders. And I'm really good at it. I'm really quick. But it allows you an interaction for a lot of different reasons to see if people like my company. But it allows, the political thing comes up. We try to downplay politics, but which you see, and I was fortunate the last couple of weeks, I was on Fox like a half dozen times, and I was even on, I think I did a CNN hit too. So what I'm seeing in the public, and I'm gonna answer your question like this. The item is inflation. Now, if I'm hanging out, I've gone to Ox Roast, I've been in a lot of gun raffles on my side. My side said it's border. I've done some things for the Democrats, it's abortion. So the Democrats say it's abortion, the Republicans say it's the border, but in reality it's inflation. Because what you're seeing is single moms come into my store where they used to buy a gallon of milk and now they're buying a half gallon of milk. They used to buy Tide, now they're buying generic Tide. They used to buy Bounty, now they're buying a generic Bounty. And not only that, but they get to the register and it gets to the end, they say stop at 80. Stop at $80. They got 130 bucks worth of stuff and they have a bunch of little kids. That's what's going on. And anyone can tell you whatever they want to tell you. The same life you have 5 years ago cost you $10,000 or $20,000 more than it did. And they don't know what to do. You're going back to school, they don't know how to get their kids clothes. I mean, it is really bad. Now, I will give the Harris people an A+ for the vibe. I mean, you know. I mean, she does make you feel good, and she's cute and all this stuff, and she's bubbly, and she has that laugh and that. But I don't know what carries the day. I would imagine, and we all see in the Instagrams where the mom, you know, I saw this Instagram my daughter sent me, and this mom was just like, she's sitting with these bills, and it had like 5 million views, so maybe some of saw it. She goes, I went back to school to get my master's, and then I worked 3 jobs so my husband could get his master's. So like, we make together like 145,000. She goes, I just paid the bills. It's almost the first week of school, and I have 80 bucks to last me a week.
Yeah.
I don't even know what else to say. And you know, if my side wants to stay in power, we need to get that narrative out there. Your life is not better than it was 5 years ago. And that's the old playbook, and we need to get to that playbook because I truly feel this entire election is about inflation. And you know, I could go in there and I could talk about grocery prices. It's 1.25 net. You only get $1.25 of every $100 you sell. My insurance for the industry, NGA will tell you this, FMI will tell you this, NFIB will tell you this. Insurance alone is up 53% over 2 years ago. Not only for my health insurance, but my insurance for my inventory. You know, these stores have millions of dollars worth of inventory. It all needs to be insured. Your refrigeration needs to be insured. The actual building needs to be insured. That's a brand new cost. Plastic bag used to cost me 3.5 cents. It cost me 11 cents. A brown bag used to cost me 29 cents. Cost me 61 cents. A cloth bag used to cost $1.50. Cost $3. Everything is up. The same life that we had 5 years ago is so much more expensive. This election is about inflation, and that's just from the people.
And I would just to echo that, you know, we went in the field, you know, because when you have an R5 district, you know, you've got to really watch everything you do, right? So I have the second lowest. I think Mike Turner's an R4. I'm an R5. Max maybe an R6. You know, so we're the lowest of the Republicans that hold the seats in Ohio. So looking, you know, if on average, and we just pulled the numbers from Department of Jobs and Family Services, right now in Ohio, on average, people are spending $983 more a month. Now that's, I mean, that goes to Mike's point. I mean, this is something that transcends, you know, everybody. I mean, it's not just one, you know, one region of the state. This is all over the state. So it is a big thing.
Kind of talking a little about elections and the issues that we see at the forefront. A lot of us have written off Sherrod Brown in the past, and he always makes it through. So I'm kind of interested to hear what you see as the landscape this fall in terms of, it certainly seems that Trump is doing very well in Ohio, but the feasibility of people splitting tickets, you know, is becoming less and less. So what do y'all think?
I don't, you know, I think, again, I think it becomes region to region. And if you look at Columbus, I mean, I flew out of Port Columbus this morning, was sitting watching, I had, you know, a bunch of TVs at the restaurant, and, you know, it's Sherrod Brown ad after Sherrod Brown after Sherrod Brown ad. It's, you know, Bernie Moreno, Bernie Moreno, Bernie Moreno. I think what you have to look at is Sherrod, up until about 2.5 weeks ago, had spent over 40 million, or people had spent up to 40 million on Sherrod Brown, and really making him look like Ronald Reagan, okay, with a rougher voice. And I can do a really good Sherrod, but I'm not drinking right now, so I won't. But I think, you know, Bernie Moreno is now meeting him. You know, I think the polling that we saw just 2 weeks ago was that Bernie was down 4 or 5, but now you're seeing Bernie match him with the media. Again, I think if even the city of Columbus, and that's where the Democrats are spending a lot of time. They're spending a lot of time in Cuyahoga County, which is Cleveland, Franklin, which is Columbus, and Hamilton, which is Cincinnati, maybe to a lesser extent in Dayton. But that Toledo area, given the fact that Marcy Kaptur, and obviously CLF saw something there that they think she's on the ropes because they just dumped another $1.1 million. But in that region, I mean, Sherrod was still doing really well on all the polls I saw. So I think it's going to turn, and if Trump wins by 10 or over, I think it's going to be very hard for there to be those ticket splitters on the ballot this year. Now, we do have a ballot initiative, which is a redistricting ballot initiative. So that's going to be on the ballot. Does do the outside groups really focus on that, which would drive up Democratic turnout? I don't know, but I think right now, if it goes 10, if it's over 10, I think Sherrod's days in the Senate are numbered.
I think you're spot on. I think if it's over, I think Trump 8 or more, Sherrod's done. Having said that, my chief knows one of the first things, he goes, what do you want this office to look like? And I said, Sherrod Brown is the #1 Democrat of the last 30 years in the state of Ohio. And one of the reasons he is his constituent outreach is a gold standard that I've never seen before. You get a phone call, you get an email that day. I've had hardcore Republican veterans tell me that Sherrod Brown is the greatest guy to ever live. I was fortunate to spend some time with Steve Scalise about a month and a half ago, and we were in Florida together, and we had a couple really good friends of the party that were there, and they said, what does it look like? So I whipped out my phone, and I showed them a video of Sherrod Brown. And in this video, it's these cop sirens that are going off, and the sheriff walks up, and he goes, our borders are open, fentanyl's killing our kids, and there's only one guy to stop it. And then they go another sheriff. All 3 sheriffs say this. Then it concludes where they have all 3 cop cars, and Sherrod Brown walks in between them, and he goes, I'm the only one that's going to stop it. And then it gets worse. Then they show the Oval Office with President Trump signing something. Sherrod Brown's right behind him going with this, like, that's right. The guy didn't move to the center. He moved to the far right. I mean, he's on InfoWars now. I mean, I'm like, who is this? And there's reason to be concerned, but I think Congressman Carey said it best. If Trump wins by 8 or more, then he can't beat the numbers. It becomes mathematical. If it gets close with Trump, we have a big problem.
And here's the other thing that I thought was interesting. And again, I live in a very, very Democrat precinct, right? The German Village is all Democrat. But I showed up. My wife and my 2 youngest sons went on vacation. I stayed in and worked the district, as you should, I guess. But I showed up at my house, and there was a Sherrod Brown flyer in my door. Not kidding. So I thought, just since we're talking about Sherrod and I get along really well, personally, we do. So I sent the picture of this that's in the door. I said to Sherrod, I said, this was in my door tonight. He goes, yep, that's exactly why we're going to win. And so I said to him, the only thing I was worried about was that, I know that Megan and I are Republican, but I thought maybe somehow you figured out a way to register my 5- and 2-year-olds. To which Sherrod responds, to make up for all the legitimate voters that your guy, LaRose, had deleted from the rolls. Look, the guy is he's a great salesman. He does a really good job. To Michael's point, I mean, he does have tremendous constituent service. I mean, when we're working on issues, we call them earmarks. The team likes me to call them something else now. I still like earmarks. But I'm surrounded by people that don't do them. Okay? I mean, Warren Davison doesn't do them. Jim Jordan doesn't do them. Troy does.
J.D. Vance doesn't do it.
J.D. Vance doesn't do it. So when you're looking at the city of Columbus, and it's the only thing I disagreed with Boehner on. But, I like to do a lot of them. And so when we're looking at, where how we're going to divide up the city of Columbus, I work with Joyce Beatty because, we split the city right in 2. But I wound up working with Sherrod on a lot of them. And, because we only have 15 that we can put in and they have unlimited. And I'll tell you, his staff has been really good. Again, I don't think he can win if it's a 10 or over.
There's a rumor that his staffers, when they pick up his suits at the dry cleaning, he goes, that has way too much starch, you have to wrinkle it up. So, I mean, he plays the part extremely well.